Hey, what's up, guys? So a couple of you have asked about how I make the real-life transactions work in this OOTP project I have. Remember, we have the 1986 METs. We've put them in 1962, and we're using transactions that sort of mimic what the real-life 1986 METs did. Now, one of the problems that we have is that there's no way for us to possibly edit the transactions in OOTP without like getting deep in and editing whatever type of file it is. I don't know if it's a text file or what that the original transactions for like the entire history of baseball are loaded into. We're not going to get deep into that. That's way too much work for a project that's frankly designed to be pretty short and is designed basically just to do this one thing. So we're not going to like go through and like change the entire history of the game. Instead, we have to sort of like make ends meet the best that we can. Now, I'm going to warn you here. We're going to look at OOTP. There's a little bit of a spoiler for this evening's game. So like if you don't want to look at it, like avert your eyes or whatever, wait till later to watch the rest of this video. So it is. We'll jump right into this right here. This is the transaction screen that you see in OOTP, right? This is our transaction log. To my knowledge, there's nothing I can do to like go through and like change and, modify the historical transactions before they take place. I can't do anything with this, right? I can look at them, but that's about it. And that does mean that there are difficult things that I have to do, right? So I look here, this is the roster of the Mets so far, and what is this, May 20th. I've had to pay attention to this roster and release 1962 Mets players who are added on. And the reason why is because the game will add the 62 Mets players on like pretty much no matter what it is that you do, right? Like there's no way for you to go through and say, hey, I don't want you to add on these guys who came onto the team in real life. The best thing that you can do is make sure that you have commissioner ability within your project and just go through and release players one by one as they come on to say, yeah, we're not playing with this guy at all, so he's gone, right? Now, what do I use as the sort of list? How do I come up with this, and what do we do for that? Well, what I did is I went and got a copy of the 1986 Diamond Mine Baseball season. The reason why I use Diamond Mine Baseball is because it is known for accuracy in its transactions, right? Though some people like the game, I clearly like it because I play with it a lot. Other people don't like it quite as much. Generally, I think it is still recognized that the research on transactions in Diamond Mine Baseball is better than it is in any of the other games. In fact, I would argue that OOTP's 1962 transactions are probably not as well researched and as accurate as Diamond Mine's 62 transactions are. So like if you're going to do any sort of replay project using like card and dice or something like that, and you're going to jump into a season like 1962 or 1970 or something like that, and you're wondering where do I find the original opening day lineups and the right transactions, I strongly recommend looking into getting the Diamond Mine Baseball season so you can go through them because it makes it a lot easier. For some seasons, there are other sources. There are people that you can contact and you can get the information from them. Sometimes you have to pay a certain fee. But the problem is that you might end up getting like an information overload and kind of like a dump of data, right? Which is not really what you want. The nice thing about Diamond Mine Baseball is that the company makes it so that it's really easy to sort of follow along from one day to the next, right? Well, I exported the real-life transaction log for the 86 Mets. There's not too much to it. And then I went and converted them to 1962 dates. This is going to be a little bit small. My apologies for that. No, that's what we have going on right here. So, for example, we changed every single date to reflect what would probably be around the right day, 1962. We are going to have September call-ups. There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that came on for the 86 Mets, none of whom were, I believe, playing on the team in October, though please correct me if I'm wrong. You can actually see the effective date, the original 86 date here in this column, because that comes from how Diamond Mine Baseball talks about these transactions. And as you can see, the dates are close. I tried to make it so that the 62 Mets have played about the same number of games as the 86 Mets do when the transaction takes place, right? So that there's no like advantage because, oh, the Mets had a bunch of rainouts in 62. They did at the beginning of the season. There's not any sort of like advantage, or we can say, well, because of that, we get Mazzilli for like, 3 extra weeks or something like that. In reality, though, it really really lines up very, very close anyway, right? So like Mazzilli came onto the active roster on what, August 7th. In the replay, he's going to come on August 4th. George Foster was released on August 7th. He'll be released again August 4th. I mean, that's not really that far off, right? A lot of these September call-ups actually came on September 6th. They'll come on September 1st. It doesn't really matter. I mean, we're not going to have Stan Jefferson start in the outfield if the Mets are in the midst of a pennant race. And the way things are going right now, they're probably going to be in the midst of a pennant race. Anyway, this is kind of what I've done. This is not really all that bad, right? There are, well, let's see, what's 45 minus 5? There may be like 40, maybe 39 transactions overall. It's mostly the same players. These are mostly players who are marginal. There are a couple players who are not, right? For example, Mookie Wilson is not marginal. Howard Johnson kind of is, unfortunately, though he later would become not that marginal. Lee Mazzilli is honestly also kind of a marginal player. Gary Carter, this was a really big injury, so we want to make sure that we actually have his almost 2 complete weeks out. As I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, actually, I think that he comes back to the team a little bit faster than he did in real life, but I think it's the same percentage of games he's going to miss. And that's kind of really about it. I mean, the 86 Mets were kind of unique in the sense that they didn't have a whole lot of major injuries during the season, as you can see here. So anyway, there you go. That's the way that I've handled transactions for this. I'd love to know if you have any other ideas or any other things that you can do to make this work out. Again, I think that this is a really important thing to do when you're talking about taking a team from one era and putting it into a completely different era. You want to make sure that you don't accidentally overplay a whole bunch of players because they're on the roster for longer than they were in real life. Having said that, there is probably a chance that we'll end up playing both Lenny Dykstra and Mookie Wilson more in this replay than they were played in real life because I'm not going to platoon them. So, I mean, some things you can allow, some things maybe you won't allow that much. Anyway, there you go. There's some of my thoughts on the subject. Again, I'd love to know what you guys think about this. I consider this to be really, really interesting. So, like, let me know. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any different ideas or if there's anything that's worked for you. And let's talk about it. Talk to you later. Bye.